Welcome to the Wind Up with Will, everyone. I'm your host, Will, here with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about the college football playoffs. I accidentally screenshotted my phone, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to be talking about uh, a week and a half ago's games in the first round. I'm going to talk about the quarterfinals as well, so I'm going to give you kind of a recap of the last round and a preview of this round, even though there's a game going on right now. It has been a little hectic, so I've been behind with the holidays and everything. I want to say I hope you had a Merry Christmas. I hope you have a Happy New Year. But I'm going to go ahead and get into this. First, I'm going to put my charger in my laptop. My laptop loves to die once I start filming. Let's get this plugged in. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go into last week's games, or really it was a week and a half ago at this point. It was almost 2 weeks ago. The playoffs are kind of wonky how they do things. So we're just going to go in order of how the games are listed here on the bracket on ESPN's app. So Oregon, number 5, Oregon hosted 12 James Madison. Oregon won 51-34. This game wasn't it. It was only ended up being a 17-point game, but the game wasn't that close. Oregon was up like 31-3, I think, at one point. Like this game was not close at all. The second half, Oregon pulled their starters, and James Madison tried everything to make it a much look a lot better on on the box score. Um, but that game was not that close. Alabama, Oklahoma. Alabama won the game. Oklahoma was the 8th seed. They hosted number 9 Alabama. Alabama won the game 34-24. This game, Oklahoma just gave away. I didn't watch this game. I watched 5 minutes of the very end of the first half, and then I went and saw the new Avatar movie because that was my plans that night. And I didn't plan to actually watch any of this game because me being a Notre Dame fan, I didn't think Alabama deserved to be in. I'm not going to rehash that whole argument. That's it's here nor there. That's an argument for another video. That was an argument for a previous video as well, so you can go watch that. So I didn't really have an interest in that game, but I saw what the score was. There was a few minutes before I was going to head out and go see the new Avatar movie, so I thought I'd put it on. And I just watched Oklahoma blow a 17-point lead. Oklahoma was ahead 17 to nothing. Alabama scored a touchdown late in the first half, made it 17-7. Okay, Alabama's trying to make it a game again. Oklahoma has the ball. They get stopped. Alabama gets a stop. Oklahoma goes to punt it. Their punter just lays the ball on the ground for Alabama to grab. So Alabama is then in field goal range. They kick a field goal at 17-7 with like 2 minutes to go in the half, under 2 minutes to go. Oklahoma's going to try and drive and either score a touchdown or get a field goal. And within a few plays, their quarterback throws a pick six, and all of a sudden the game is tied 17-7 or 17-17. And then I go to the Avatar movie because it was opening night. I wanted to see the new Avatar movie, and I pull out my phone after 3 hours of what I thought was a good movie, and look and see that Alabama won by 10 points. Oklahoma had a 17-0 lead and proceeded to go on a 7-34 run. They scored 7 points the rest of the game, where Alabama scored 34. Oklahoma gave this game away, and they're the only team in the college football playoff history to have two games in the college football playoffs since it became a 14 playoff, at least a 14 playoff, to blow a 17-point lead twice in the playoffs. They're the only team who's done it. And so Oklahoma is just, I feel sorry for their fans. It's just tragic that that's happened to them twice, and tragic that Alabama won because there's going to be all these people that are like, Alabama won. See, told you they should be in the playoffs. Just because you win in the playoffs doesn't mean you deserve to be there. Again, like I said before, I'm not going to go into the whole re-argue this. But Alabama didn't deserve to be in, and just because they won doesn't mean they deserve to be in. Um, they're a team that, with 3 losses and the way they lost at least 2 of those games, they don't deserve to be anywhere near the playoffs. And I'm hoping that Indiana puts them out tomorrow because I'm just tired of hearing about Alabama. No offense to Alabama or their fans, that they're a good team. They're a capable team, but I still don't think they deserve to be in the playoffs. Number 6, Ole Miss hosted number 11 Tulane. They won 41-10 in that game. I'm sorry, Ole Miss won 41-10. If you didn't know, that was a game. It was a rematch of the regular season. Ole Miss won that game as well, big. I think they won it by a slightly larger margin of victory. Um, and then that game wasn't really close. And then Texas A&M Miami was the first game of last Saturday. Yes, 2 Saturdays ago at this point. Texas A&M, the 7th seed, hosted number 10 Miami, and Miami won on the road 10-3. So two of the better game, quote unquote, better games, the Alabama Oklahoma and Miami A&M. The road team won, which hadn't happened yet in the college football playoffs in the 12 team era. So it was unique to see that. And Miami is as good as people thought they were. Their defense was good. They shut A&M down. They did what they needed to do, and late in the game, they had a big play by their running back that put them in the position to score a touchdown, and that was the difference in the game. And having watched the game, it felt like at moments that whoever scores a touchdown, they have the momentum their way, that they're going to win this game. And it just so happened Miami was that team. A&M couldn't do it, even with all the missed field goals and how windy it was. Wasn't in their favor with a home playoff game with over 100,000 fans, probably 110,000 fans there. A&M couldn't win. And part of you has to wonder, were they really tested in the regular season to be ready for a game like this, or is it in the back of their mind of, well, we didn't finish a business, we lost to Texas, can we beat this team, or was it just really that Miami's that good? I think it's a little bit of both, of maybe of kind of maybe nerves, but also in front of your home crowd, but also that Miami is a good team. They have a good defense. Defense travels, and they played well, they executed well, and they just ended up being the team on top. I really thought it was going to be an overtime game watching it. But something else I want to mention in this, so the winners of the first round, Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Miami advanced to the quarterfinals. But one thing I want to mention in all this is there's been a lot of talk about the group of 5 teams not belonging in the playoffs, James Madison and Tulane. And without going into too much detail, because this is a topic that I really should make a video on of its in and of itself, because I could talk on this topic forever. I've had almost like blue in the face arguments with people over this. Um, I think James Madison and Tulane belong in the playoffs. And just to make it short, because I don't want this to turn into me standing on a soapbox here, because we got to talk about the games tonight and tomorrow. But just from the perspective of being a fan of a mid-major in men's and women's basketball in Murray State, the smaller schools, it means a lot to them to play in the playoffs. It means a lot to them to be on the same stage as the big boys and the big girls and get to play them and get to compete with them and try and win against them. It means so much to their programs. It's part of what makes college sports so special. And it's what sports is. It's competition. Who doesn't want to see David versus Goliath? And people say, well, that's not a thing in college football. Yeah, it is. Appalachian State beating Michigan. All of these group of 5 teams winning bowl games, like Tulane beating USC a few years ago in the Cotton Bowl. Boise State beating Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. Games like that do happen. And a few years ago, Central Florida was a top 10 team and they didn't make the 14 playoff. You're really going to tell me that, and now they're in the Big 12, you're really going to tell me that program couldn't have won a game in the playoffs or 2 games in the playoffs? And you might make that argument. You might honestly make that argument and believe that. But it is unfair to teams who are at the FBS level to be denied a spot in the playoffs because, well, they're not one of the power teams. They play FBS just like Alabama and Ole Miss and A&M and Miami and Oregon. They're at the same level as them. You might say, well, Will, they're not at the same level. They don't play at the same level. They don't have the same level of talent. They don't play in the same conference. Obviously, if they go head to head, they're not going to win the majority of those games. But they're at the same level that they're all at the FBS level, and they deserve to be in the playoffs just like all the teams at the FCS level have the ability to earn their way into the playoffs. The Division Two, Division Three, NAIA, high school, the NFL. Every team at every level knows they can make the playoffs, and their season has meaning competing and trying to make the playoffs and determining it on the field. FBS is the only one who doesn't. It's archaic and mind blowing um, that we're only going to take 12 teams out of 136, and we're essentially going to tell, because next year there's going to be another conference because the Pac-12 is coming back, so there'll be a group of six in a Power Four. We're going to tell five of the group of six conference winners, your season doesn't mean anything. You're not going to the playoffs. They deserve the right to be in the playoffs. However, the playoffs are eventually structured because they're eventually going to expand. Whether it is a 20 or 24 team playoff similar to the FCS, the other conference champions deserve to have the ability to to have it determined on the field rather than in a boardroom. You can at least admit that of it's better for it to be played on the field and let the pieces fall where they are rather than someone in the boardroom saying, well, this team doesn't deserve it. We're not going to give them a chance. How did that work out this year? A lot of people can say Alabama didn't deserve to be in over Notre Dame, or BYU deserved to be in over Miami or Alabama. And some people are arguing Texas, which I'm not going to argue for, but clearly it being decided in a boardroom of just picking teams, and you're at the same time you're leaving half the conference champions out. It's not a good system, and it's unfair to those teams and their season and their fans. So I'm just going to get off my soapbox and move on to the next round, the next round of playoff games. And at some point, I will do a video addressing that and making a whole argument for it. But on to the games that are coming on this weekend. So right now we have a game going on tonight between Ohio State and Miami. The teams with the byes were number 4 Texas Tech, number 1 Indiana, number 3 Georgia, number 2 Ohio State. Miami advances to play Ohio State. Ole Miss advances to play Georgia in a rematch. Alabama plays Indiana, and Oregon plays Texas Tech. So tonight in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, we have number 10 Miami taking on number 2 Ohio State. Ohio State was, I believe, a 7.5 point favorite for this game. We're going to quickly look at this. If it will show me. Oh, why must you hide the spread? I believe I saw it was a 7.5 point. Ohio, where did it go? Where is the spread? I believe it was 7.5 points when I last saw. I think that's a little close, but Miami does have a really good defense. My view though is if Carson Beck plays bad, they're through one quarter right now. But if Carson Beck doesn't play perfect, they're going to lose. There's two games this year, and their two losses. He threw six interceptions this year. So when Carson Beck plays okay, they're able to win because their defense can carry him. But when he plays bad and turns the ball over, they lose games. And I think Ohio State is one of the two best teams in the country. Their defense has been awesome. Their only loss this year was to Indiana, who's the number one team. Texas, a team that people keep pounding their fists on, or some people pound their fists on the table and say should make the playoffs. Ohio State beat them 14-7. That game, while close in score, wasn't quite as close as the score indicates. Uh, Ohio State has a great defense. Julian Sand looks like he is a quarterback prodigy. Their wide receiving core is arguably the best in college football with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. I don't see Ohio State losing this game. I think they beat Miami. I think Miami will keep it close with their defense. It could be another low-scoring game like Ohio State, Indiana, or even Texas A&M, Miami. I don't think it'll be quite that low-scoring, but I will say Ohio State wins 21-17. I say that'll be the final score. So I'm going to pick Ohio State to win the Cotton Bowl Classic. In the All-State Sugar Bowl, that is tomorrow night at 7 between number 3 Georgia and number 6 Ole Miss. Georgia is a 6.5 point favorite in the rematch. I'm gonna take Georgia there. I think Georgia wins this game. I think they win by. I say they win by 14 points. Give me Georgia 28, Ole Miss 14. I think Georgia's got a great defense. Their offense is good. Gunnar Stockton plays well. Kirby Smart's an experienced coach in the playoffs. I think they're going to win the Sugar Bowl and advance to face Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. On the other side of the bracket, we have number 5 Oregon taking on number 4 Texas Tech in the Capital One Orange Bowl. This is a game where, even though Oregon is the lower seed, they are a 2.5 point favorite over Texas Tech. I'm going to go with my initial predictions and say Texas Tech wins this game. I think Texas Tech is really underrated. Their defense is phenomenal. I think this will be a great game, but I think Texas Tech wins it. Give me Texas Tech 24, Oregon 21. I think it'll be close, but I think Texas Tech edges out for the win to advance to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And then our last matchup is the Rose Bowl game presented by Prudential. Number 9 Alabama taking on Indiana. Indiana is a 7 point favorite over Alabama. All of these games are on ESPN, by the way. I am thinking Indiana wins by more than 7. I say they win by. I'd say they win by 14. So I'll say they'll win 34-20. I think this will be a higher scoring game. I don't think this Alabama team is as disciplined as previous teams under Nick Saban. They're capable of making mistakes. The last month of the season, their offense really struggled. And until Oklahoma just gave that game away or gave those points away for it to be a tie game at halftime, they weren't looking good against Oklahoma. They were down 17-0. I just don't think this Alabama team is good enough. And like I think it was Joe Klatt or some other analyst said earlier this week, if Alabama finds themselves in a 17-0 hole against Indiana, they are not going to come back and win this game. Indiana is too well coached and they execute too well. Indiana is probably the most balanced team in the country with their offense, their defense. Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman for a reason. He's had big moments all year long. Give me Indiana to win this by 14 points. I think they win 34-20 to win the Rose Bowl and advance to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl versus Texas Tech. And the funny thing is, all of the teams that I have in the Final Four are all red. So instead of blue bloods, we have red bloods. And I guess kind of fitting, I'm wearing a red sweatshirt. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick who I think will win the Peach Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and the National Championship. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and say I'm going to go out with my initial predictions. I think Indiana beats Texas Tech in the Peach Bowl to advance to the championship. And Ohio State beats Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl to reach the championship. And we have a rematch of Indiana-Ohio State, and I'm going to pick Indiana to win their first national championship. I'm going to stick with that pick. I think Indiana is the best team in the country with the way they've played their season. They've faced some challenging opponents and won some close games and games in which they maybe shouldn't have won, but they managed to pull out the win. They played tough. They're really balanced. And they beat Ohio State, who through the year really proved that Ohio State was the number 1 team until they lost to Indiana. So I think Indiana is a proven team, and they're the team to beat in my eyes. Until someone actually beats them, they're the team to win it all. That's my thoughts. Those are my predictions. Let me know if you disagree. Who do you have winning the national championship? Do you have a different team winning it? What are your thoughts on Alabama being in the playoff field? Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.